Trustee Reese.
Awesome. Very good.
All right, you are good to go.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Carvalho, and with me is my guest at this time, Rhode Island General Treasurer Seth Magazine. Thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you. And my first question is just a general question, just to ask you, what is it that made you want to get into politics and become a politician?
Well, in short, to help people. I'm a born and raised Rhode Islander. I grew up in Bristol, Rhode Island. Lived here most of my life, and 4 or 5 years ago, the state was in very rough shape. We had the highest unemployment rate of any state in the country. Wages were stagnant. We had a lot of financial problems. People were losing hope. And I saw the treasurer's office as a way to use my financial background to help the state and to help people. And so that's what gets me up every morning, is getting to come in and use the office to help get the state's economy back on track and to help Rhode Islanders become more financially secure.
Now, not everyone's informed with what the general duties of your job is. Well, what are the general day-to-day duties of being the general treasurer?
Well, we manage a number of programs here in the state treasury that serve Rhode Islanders. The largest one is the state's retirement system, or the pension fund. This is the primary source of retirement security for all of the state's public school teachers, our state employees, and a number of our municipal employees. So that includes first responders like firefighters and police officers. It includes a lot of nurses and social workers and other public servants. So managing the pension system well so that those Rhode Islanders who have spent their lives serving the community can retire with dignity is a big priority of ours. We manage a number of other programs as well. We have one called the Unclaimed Property Program, which is sort of like a big statewide lost and found system. So if an individual loses money or is owed money by a company that doesn't know where to find them, then that money oftentimes ends up in our office, and it's our job to reunite it with its rightful owner. And we have more than $200 million of this missing money that we're working on returning to the rightful owners. We run a program called the College Bound Fund. This is a college savings program. The cost of higher education, as I'm sure you're aware, is very high, and it's getting higher every year. And College Bound is a program that allows families a tax-efficient way to save for college. So you can put money in a College Bound account. You don't have to pay any capital gains taxes on the investment earnings from that account, so it's a good way to save for college. Those are some examples of the kinds of programs that we run here in the Treasurer's office. But I also spend a lot of my time as Treasurer working on new initiatives too. The latest one of those being the plan to repair Rhode Island's public school buildings. We have a real challenge in the state with school buildings that are unsafe, that are not properly equipped. And so I was one of the co-chairs of the school building task force that developed a plan to make a major investment repairing Rhode Island's public school buildings. So while I spend the majority of my time managing the programs of the office, we also spend a fair amount of time developing new ideas like the school construction plan as well.
All right. Now, my next question, when I was drafting these questions, I wasn't really planning on asking this originally because I'm sure I could just find it on your website or something. But my grandfather, when he was alive, he always used to tell me, I wonder how much money is in the general fund. I want to know where all of it goes. If you ever interview that magazine or guy, let me know what it is. So I figured it would be just fitting first to ask you exactly what's in the general fund and where does the money go, how much of it goes where is it funded with?
Sure. So the general fund is the state's largest account, like a bank account, and money is raised into it from taxes. So the largest source of revenue for the general fund is the state income tax. The second largest is the state sales tax. And then the third largest is actually revenue from the lottery and from the casinos. And every year the legislature, the General Assembly, convenes and they pass a budget for how to spend the general fund. And so that goes to a number of different programs. Education is a big one. human services, which includes healthcare for low-income Rhode Islanders and services for the elderly and the disabled. And it also includes, funding to fix roads and maintain highways. It includes funding for our park system and for environmental cleanup. So really, the general fund is kind of a big account that most of our state tax revenue goes into, and most of our state level expenses come out of. And again, every year the legislature, the General Assembly come together here in the State House and they decide how to spend those funds. And if you want a line by line account of where the money is spent each year, you can find that in the state budget, which is available online, and we'd also be happy to get you a copy.
All right. Now, there's been for years with the entire problem with the Paw Sox, where are they going, what's going on. It was recently announced that the league is trying to get trademark for the term Blue Sox. If they go to Worcester, it will hurt not only the economy of the city of Pawtucket, but the state as well. If this does end up happening, what's the plan of the treasurer? What's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I hope that the Paw Sox stay in Rhode Island. I would say the Paw Sox belong in Rhode Island. The Paw Sox belong in Pawtucket specifically. I was supportive of the plan back in the spring to keep the Paw Sox here. I thought it was a good plan. And although the version that passed the legislature was a little bit different from the original plan, I hope that it's enough to get the team to stay. Because it's important to our local economy, as you mentioned. And it's also, I think, important for our quality of life. This is family entertainment. It's something that people can take their kids to and they don't have to spend a lot of money. It's a good amenity and I think a good additive factor to our quality of life in Rhode Island. So my understanding is that the talks between the City of Pawtucket and the team are ongoing. We're hopeful that they will choose to stay in their natural home of Pawtucket. If not, then we'll explore our options and hopefully look to make other investments that will continue to improve our quality of life in the state. But I'm very hopeful that they choose to stay here because this is what they belong, where they belong.
Now, recently you announced that you have an initiative to improve financial literacy in schools. Now, would you be able to go more into detail here on that plan?
Yeah, so this is something that we're still working on. Something I should have mentioned earlier is before I started my career as treasurer and in the investment profession, I was actually a teacher myself. I was a public school teacher. I taught financial education to my students. And Rhode Island has fallen behind compared to other states in teaching financial literacy. So we have some schools and some teachers that do a fantastic job in Rhode Island teaching personal finance, but we are one of only a handful of states in the country that does not have any sort of a requirement that school districts include financial education in their curriculum. So what we've been doing this summer is convening groups of experts, both here in Rhode Island and from out of state, to develop a plan to expand financial education in Rhode Island schools. We are planning to come out with a roadmap for how we accomplish that in the fall. Because keep in mind, it's not just about saying that we should have a requirement, it's also about making sure that our teachers in our schools have the resources that they need in order to actually deliver good lessons, right? It's one thing to pass a law saying you have to teach this, you have to teach that, but if the teachers in the schools don't have the training they need and the materials and the resources that they need, they're not going to be able to execute on it. So we're in the process now of working with a wide group of stakeholders to develop a plan. My hope is that we will have a plan in the fall that we can then bring to the legislature and the governor and the Department of Education to expand the teaching of financial education in our schools.
All right. Now, there was another announcement that was recently made that there'll be school safety repairs through a $10.5 million school construction fund. I wanted to know if I could get your thoughts on this, and again, where is all, how is that $10.5 million, where is it coming from?
Well, it's coming from the general fund, going back to your earlier question. But this $10.5 million for school safety is just the beginning. As you know, unfortunately, school safety has become a very important issue nationwide. School shootings, which a generation ago were almost unthinkable, are now unfortunately becoming more and more common. And there are a lot of ways to solve that, but one way to help prevent school shootings or to mitigate other safety threats to schools is very simple upgrades to the buildings. So cameras, doors that lock, intercom systems that work. A lot of our school buildings are in such bad shape that they don't have these very simple things. So this $10.5 million that we made available last week is just the beginning. It's a grant program that school districts can apply for those emergency funds to help upgrade school safety. But if all goes to plan, we will be able to make a much larger investment in school safety in the coming year. As a result of the work that we did on the school building task force, we developed a plan to invest $1 billion over the next 5 years repairing schools all across the state. Now that's not just for safety, that's also for things like educational enhancements, technology, that sort of thing. But school safety will certainly be a big part of it. So the $10.5 million is what we are able to do quickly right now. That funding is available today. But the plan is to invest $1 billion over the next 5 years, repairing our schools, including making safety upgrades. The beginning of that program will come this November, when voters will be asked to approve a $250 million bond. That will be the first step in that larger plan of making major investments in fixing our school buildings statewide.
All right. And my last question I want to talk to you about is the whole debacle problem with the St. Joseph pension plan. I just want to gather your thoughts on that and what should be done about all of this.
Yeah, well, this is a really sad story. So as you and your viewers, I'm sure, are aware, St. Joseph's Hospital in South Providence, been there for a long time, and a lot of the employees of this hospital, nurses, administrators, janitors, aides, found out recently that their pension plan was in a lot of trouble and that their benefits could be cut. And that's really tough, you know, for somebody who's already retired, who's 70, 80, 90 years old, not able to go back to work, for them to have their income reduced is really tragic. And one of the reasons that this is especially bad is the people who are in the pension plan at St. Joseph's didn't even know that there was a problem until it was too late. Because pension plans that are run by religious organizations are exempt from laws around pension transparency. So the state pension plan that we manage in our office, pension plans at big companies like Textron, they all have to be transparent about the financial condition that their plan is in. They have to either send a letter to their members every year saying, here's how the pension plan is doing, or they have to publish annual reports saying, here's how the pension plan is doing. But pensions that are run by religious organizations, like in the case of St. Joseph's, are exempt from all of that reporting, which means that the employees in those plans, like the employees at St. Joseph's, have no way of knowing whether their pension is in good shape or bad shape. So I've decided that when the legislature comes back in January, I'm going to ask them to pass a bill that would require pension plans run by religious organizations to have the same transparency policies as all other pension plans. Because people have a right to know. People have a right to know whether their retirement is going to be there after they're no longer able to work anymore. And just like employees at Textron or the state of Rhode Island have a right to know and do find out every year how their pension system is doing. Employees at a place like St. Joe's also have that same right. They ought to be able to know how their pension plan is doing. So that's what we're doing. The story at St. Joe's is a very tragic one, and I hope that if we get this bill passed, that nobody else in the future will have to go through that again.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you for having me. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
That's all right.